never done anything right in her life. When the female agent said, "What would you say if the president walked through that door right now?" Somehow, I channeled my inner Martha Stewart and I simply said, I'd say hello. And I was exonerated.
All right, so that was Kathy Griffin on how she faced federal interrogation for conspiracy to assassinate the president. Yes, that's what it was. All because Donald Trump was upset that she took a photo of a mask that looked like him with ketchup on it. And as you can imagine, all these years later, the world is waking up to realize maybe the outrage over the photo was a tad bit overblown, no? For the first time in 6 years, Kathy is back on the road for her My Life on the PTS TV tour. She's putting the Trump drama behind her to make you laugh about a whole new host of dramas, both personal and not. Emmy Award-winning comedian Kathy Griffin is here on set in Los Angeles, and with us from Miami, my good friend and attorney Katie Phang, host of the Katie Phang Show right here on MSNBC. It's great to have both of you with us. So I got to start with you, Kathy, first. And you say that you are not sorry now for the joke that you made. What made you now realize that you are not sorry about all the outrage that happened back then and what transpired?
Well, I didn't realize the extent of the Trump machine when they are upset with someone. But the situation with me was unprecedented. There have been comics like the great Lenny Bruce and the great George Carlin, and I'm not putting myself in their class, but they were harassed by local police. Never has a comedian been harassed by the Department of Justice, two agencies within the Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office and the Secret Service. And actually, Jason Leopold filed a FOIA for me, a Freedom of Information Act, and it showed how serious the Oval Office and the Attorney General were about charging me with conspiracy to assassinate the President of the United States.
And you are somebody with means, you're somebody who is high profile, you're somebody who obviously was not threatening to the President of the United States in any real manner. And so the takeaway from your experience has been what for the ordinary American? Because if they can do that to you, somebody who is visible and high profile, and again with means, what can they do to the average American who does not have the ability that you did?
Well, the White House can do pretty much anything they want to if they set their mind to it, especially when using an arm like the Department of Justice. And by the way, I'm not anti-government in any way. I would say I think the FBI may have saved my life the times they came over and would go over credible threats versus non-credible threats with me, which was quite often. But I think people should understand that, believe it or not, their vote matters. And it's not just the presidential, it's the down ballot. And so what happened to me could happen to you, because I was literally just taking a photo which I thought would be outrageous and maybe live on a gay blog for 2 days or something. And I am suggesting, from what I've learned, I'm just suggesting that the fact that the photo lived on TMZ, and that company seems to have a very cozy relationship with Donald Trump, meaning Harvey Levin, and AMI Media, which owns the National Enquirer, you know, they really amplified that photo a lot with the tabloids, like all the tabloids that they do. And they, remember, they got immunity in the Robert Mueller case, which is not something I ever required. So I would just suggest that if the White House decides to actually attack a private citizen, which is what I am ultimately,
right,
they have the means to do it. And all I had to do was lawyer up, but I was interrogated under oath, and they were very serious about that charge.
So let's talk, Katie, let's talk about the law here and what the First Amendment does and does not do. How did the DOJ ultimately get away with investigating Kathy as they did, as she was saying, a private citizen exercising her First Amendment right? This is not a private corporation who may have rules or policies in place for employees. This was what we'd like to think of one of our most sacred fundamental rights.
Yeah, and Ayman, let me be clear. There is a federal statute that understandably exists in order to protect people like the president and other federal officials from credible threats of harm. And I have to use an adjective, credible, because for anybody to think that what Kathy did was anything other than an expression of art, an expression of what she thought was her personal opinion, That is an absurdity, and that is exactly what Donald Trump does. I mean, think about it. Donald Trump actually likes to hide behind protected speech. He likes to claim when he tells people to come and storm the United States Capitol that that is protected free speech, and yet when a private citizen like Kathy Griffin tries to do it, suddenly it is now a, quote, threat of harm to the president. So understanding that, you're exactly right. What Kathy, what others, including Michael Cohen, for example, if you'll recall, Michael Cohen was thrown back into jail when he said that he had this tell-all book that was coming out, and a federal judge found that that was retaliation. What you're seeing is, and it's specific to the Trump administration, I want to be very clear, Donald Trump weaponizing his own Department of Justice to be able to go after private citizens. And even though you see somebody like Kathy, who is brilliant and successful and unbelievably creative, fighting back, you're right, not everybody has the means, the wherewithal, or, the willingness to be able to do so. And that is why when we say, we have to listen to what Donald Trump is saying, what he's going to do to his opponents, what he's going to do to the people that say things that are counter to what he stands for. He's telling us what he's going to do, and we have to listen to it loud and clear.
Katie, do you think, based on what you know with the details of this case, that Kathy's First Amendment rights were violated by the Department of Justice?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think if you look at actually the cases that actually have been investigated by federal law enforcement authorities, they are definitely not what you saw Kathy do. And I think what happens here, though, is it's all situational. You have to consider the environment within which things happened with Kathy. When that was happening, you had a Trump president, you had a Trump administration, you had a Trump Department of Justice. That is the real color behind why things are done. And I think in this particular instance, Kathy clearly, if people are listening to what she's saying, she had to sit and be interrogated by federal law enforcement authorities and the United States Secret Service for what she did. That is unbelievably terrifying. That is unbelievably daunting. That is unbelievably expensive in many ways. I'm not just talking money. I am talking about your ability to live freely in a democracy, and I think that's really important for people to listen to.
Yeah, it is extremely, and more people are listening because you're back out on tour and you are talking about
I'm off the no-fly list. I want to mention I was also actually on the no-fly list and the Interpol list. And so making it almost impossible for me to make a living is something else you wouldn't wish on anybody else. But I want to say my cancellation, when I say the feds have never gone to anyone, I mean in entertainment.
Right. Because
Michael Cohen, I believe his First Amendment rights were taken advantage of as well.
No, that's a very important point because we're thinking about this not just in terms of what it has cost you in terms of the actual ordeal, but also, as you just now said, the cost of living as a result of being put on a no-fly list.
Yeah.